Okay, hi everybody. I'm gonna go through the exercise in chapter 6 with you. I was trying it out myself this afternoon, and I ran into a couple of things that um, I could see as possible, problems. Oh my God, it won't let me do this kind of problems. Um, and there's so many variables in Illustrator. So I'm just going to kind of go through the exercises in here and point out to you some things to look out for. And maybe try to simplify some of the things they tell you to do. Now, just because I'm scrolling through this doesn't mean you're not responsible for reading it, because you are. But I just wanted to get to the exercise part. Okay, so we're going to be working with a couple of different tools. We're going to be working with the pen tool, which is this guy right here, not to be confused with the curvilinear tool, which is extremely cool, and it looks kind of like the pen tool, but if you accidentally click on this one instead of this, it's not going to do what the exercise tells you it's going to do. And I want to minimize the freaking out, since I'm not there to help you. I'm just trying to think of the ways that I could you know show you some things that you might run into. Okay. Another tool that you're going to use for this exercise is the paintbrush tool. And then there's some other things later on that you might use, but for now, I believe for this exercise, just these two: pen and paintbrush tool. Okay. So if you recall, let me just scroll back up for a second to show you. This is where you click to download the files for this chapter. And I've already done that, and I've already opened them. They're on my desktop, and I just wanted to show you there's two um, files in here. You only need to open the Illustrator file, and there's also a Photoshop file in there, and I will explain to you what that file is for a little later, and why that file needs to be left there. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Okay, now when I'm in Illustrator, I'm also trying to just think in terms of, let's keep our desktop um, as free of clutter as possible. So what you might want to do, if you haven't already, if you've got a bunch of stuff open on your, and you just want it to look nice, go to Window, Workspace, and come down here where it says Reset Essentials. And basically, that's going to give you, um, it didn't even give me what I wanted. Okay, so basically it's going to give you something that you can delete, and then you won't have anything open. There we go. Here's what I want you to open. Okay, I want you to open your Layers palette. I would say Layers is the one palette that I probably never put away. This in both Illustrator and Photoshop. This is a very crucial palette. The rest of them I put away when I'm not using them. Since we're going to use our brush tool, and just want to show you a couple of things about the brush tool while we're in there. There's also a brushes palette, and I'm just going to kind of move this over here. And I don't want these two guys, so I'm going to say goodbye to them. Okay, and all right. So I've got my layers palette and my brushes palette. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is make it so you can't see any of the original files. Okay, because these, really the only reason they're there is so that you can see what they want you to do. Okay, that's it. But so don't let that confuse you, because you are going to be using one of these later, but it's not at all critical that you have that you have them visible. So you're going to be starting on a clean page, and I want you to create a new layer. Okay, so that's layer 4 right there. All right. Um, and let's see. Okay, and basically what it's asking you to do is, first thing, just get your paintbrush tool and just drag it to make a couple of, very basic shapes on your artboard. So let me choose my paintbrush here. And the paintbrushes are really, really cool. There's all sorts of just super neat stuff that they do. Um, but they also, especially if somebody's been using Illustrator before, if you're sharing your computer with somebody and somebody's been using some of the fancy brushes, I just want a plain old, not interesting, not fun brush. Okay, let's play with the fancy brushes later. Okay, so if you have your brush tool clicked, you can click on this little drop down right here, and it's going to say brush options, and it's going to pull this up. And this is just a way of changing your brush if you happen to be in the calligraphic ones, which I am. And basically, I don't want this brush to be very big, and I don't want it to be, you know, flat or weird looking in any way, just because it's not necessary for it to be that way. So just make sure it's not too big. I've got like an 8 point here. That's about the thickness of my line, and just tell it okay. And then just come in and do, and these of course don't have to be pretty. Want me to do these in color instead? How about if I do these in color instead of black and white? Yeah, because we're going to make this layer invisible anyway. So let's see. How about like a really bright purple? Okay, just to be rebellious. Okay, so, oh, what happened? Let's try that again. Okay. There we go. Okay, see, the teachers make mistakes sometimes too. I probably should have stopped and started over on that one, but people make mistakes. So there we go. Okay, so I made the mistake of trying to choose a fill color for this. I need a stroke color. Okay, so if your stroke is set to default, which by the way, you can get your default settings down here at any time. Let me move this over a little bit so you can see it, by clicking this little teeny tiny picture of two squares, and you can make the fill and the stroke shift and alternate with one another if you like. But since I'm concerned with the stroke right now, I'm just going to go ahead and choose a purple from the palette that's in it. And very good. Okay, so just make a couple of, I'm doing this on a mouse pad, and I don't expect these to be pretty. If you have a stylus tablet and you like it, use it for this. I'm using my laptop, and I do not like drawing with the little pad that's on there. I actually personally I'm more comfortable with a mouse, but a lot of my students are not comfortable with the mouse at all and have been using the tablet all the time. So just whatever works. But I would say the little pad on your laptop is probably the worst thing for doing any kind of freehand. Okay, so that's all they're asking you to do is just make a couple of shapes. Okay. Next thing they want you to do, I'm going to move my toolbox over here. So I'm trying to make it so that on my little tiny screen I can see the book and my Illustrator stuff, and I can make that go away. Go away. Okay, it doesn't. Oh, never mind. Okay. Sorry, you guys. It's been a long day. All right, here's where we were. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is, if you don't already have your layers palette, open it up, and in your layer palette, click on template and then click on OK. Now it's saying to do this on layer 1 because it has, for this exercise, it has you starting on a new document. I want you to just give me this in the document you have. So where it says layer 1, you're really talking about layer 4. So what they mean for you to do is double click, sorry, and tell it you want it to be a template, and that you want to dim the image to if it 50%. Okay, now this is the first place I ran into a snag on Creative Cloud. It doesn't really bother me, and it's really not that big a deal, but if it happens to any of you, I want you to know what you can do to get around it, or just that it's no big deal. I'm thinking it might be a Creative Suite CS6 thing. I'm not really sure. But what it was supposed to do was make this template layer kind of faded out, so that you could kind of be tracing over it without really having to see any more of it than you actually need it. So I'm just going to unlock it for a second, and I'm going to. I think it has something to do with the fact that I drew on it and didn't import an image, like a Photoshop image, because I know that'll go to template very easily. I'm just going to tell it for temporarily no template here, and I'm just going to go ahead and select everything I have on my page. And an easy way to select everything is you can just draw a box around them with your black arrow. And there's another palette in here called Transparency. Okay, Transparency, and let's go ahead and take the opacity down to about 30%. I hope that worked. There we go. Okay. So if for whatever reason you can't get it as a template to gray out to 50% or whatever, don't worry about it. But do go ahead and turn it back into a template. And it still was a template, but do go ahead and lock it again, okay, so that you don't accidentally do anything to it. Okay, so let's create another layer on top of that. Okay, next thing they say to do. Okay, so create a new layer. Yeah, did that. And now we're going to recreate these shapes, and we're going to do them kind of precise. Okay, so we're tracing over it in a new way. Let's see here. This is when we use. It's kind of confusing because it's all the same size, so I keep trying to go to what's in the textbook instead of my own toolbox. That's why I keep messing up over there. Okay, here's my pen tool. Okay, so basically to make a straight line, and I'm just going to trace right over top of this one. Before I do anything, I want to make my stroke black, and I want to make sure it's only, let's make it 2 points. Let's make it 3 points, just so it's kind of, a little bit thicker. Again, just nothing fancy with this. Just okay, just 100% black, 3 points, and okay. So here we go. You just click and let go. Okay, so you can't see me right now, but I am not touching my mouse or anything. I clicked and then immediately took my hand off the keyboard. And now with my other hand, well, I mean, with the same hand, but I came back and I dragged it. And now I'm going to click and let go again. And one thing I'm going to do real quick, because I don't want yellow to be I don't want yellow to be well, we don't want violet either, right? But I need to do something dark. Oh, dark blue again. Why not? Okay. So what I've got now is a line. If you just click and let go, click again, and then to get out of this, you can just choose another tool. And the easiest way to do that is to click either the letter A or the letter V on your keyboard. And what that did is you need to memorize those two shortcuts anyway. The black arrow is V. You can see it says right there. The white arrow is A. Okay, so you can go ahead and just tell it, to go either V or A, and then you're going to get a line with a box around it that you can edit if you like. Okay. And so we're going to we'll come back to doing stuff like that later. But, basically when you have any line that you make with the path tool is infinitely editable. Okay. Now, before I go into making complete shape here, I want to point something else out. And that's that, again, this is just to avoid the freak out factor, because it's really not that big a deal if it happens. And but I know the first few times it happened to me when I was learning this program, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? We're going to make a closed shape. So when we do that, we want to make sure that we do not have any fill. Okay. Make sure that you have a stroke right now. Just stay with your black. Unless you're rebellious, then you can use some other color. And just make sure you've got the little red slashy thingy through. So what that's saying is that there's nothing, when I draw this triangle, there's nothing inside of it. Okay, click, let go, then take my finger or oh yeah, I've got to get my pen tool first. That would help. Okay, there we go. Click and let go. Drag. I'm dragging without clicking right now, and then I find a point where I want to land. Click and let go. Okay, and then I'm just dragging it. I think it looks like a little spider hanging from a spider web, so you've got this line here. It's like, whoa, where can I go? And so I always think about it like a spider web. Click and let go. Okay, now this is the important part, and you guys need to look really close. This is another one of those, oh my God, it's not working factor things. Okay, look how when I took my pen tool and I touched it to the top of the triangle, it made a little circle next to the pen tool icon. Can you see it? It made like a little white box around that, and it made a little circle next to it. And notice that if I'm not touching it, I'm close, but I'm not touching it, it's not happening. What this means, and you have to have this or it's not going to work, this means that the shape is closed. It now means that you could fill it if you wanted to. It now means that it's all a shape instead of just a line that almost makes a complete triangle. And it's one of those things that Illustrator, you kind of have to be right on the money every time you click your mouse tool. Every time you click any tool, you have to be kind of right on the money. A lot of times I work very closely zoomed in just so I can see those points a little bit better, because if you miss a point and you don't get that little symbol next to it that tells you got whatever results it was you were looking for, you're going to get frustrated. So this is a program that you've got to slow down, take your time, okay? At least until you get used to it. Okay, so anyway, click and let go. And now I've got a perfect triangle. Okay, And if we want to change the triangle around a little bit, that's what, okay, first of all, let me show you. I'll get the letter V, my selection tool. The letter V lets me move the whole triangle, right? Okay, so if I want to move it, I can also make the triangle bigger or smaller. I can distort it if I want, but if I really want to start messing with the triangle and moving not the whole thing, but one corner at a time to really distort it, I need to have my white arrow key, which is A, okay? And what I do is you've got to click on it and then click on it again. If it first shows up and your anchor points are not white, if they're filled in, it's going to act like the other tool, the selection tool, the letter V. These when it's white, when you've got a white instead of a filled in circle at the anchor point, that means you can move that anchor point independently. And this can get real fun. You know, you can just pretty much do whatever you want all day long. So, you know, we can kind of come back to doing some more complicated things later, but just go ahead and, you know, just go ahead and do that if you would. And then again, when you're finished messing with it, go back to your pen tool. Okay, this is going to be a curve, so let me show you how they do that. Click and let go. Okay, I've got a straight line here. I thought you were making a curve. What happens? Watch this. It's like magic. Click, do not let go. Don't let go. I'm still pressing the corner. I'm still pressing the button on my mouse. And then drag the opposite direction that you want that curve. Okay? And these curves, you can be super, super, super precise with curves. And this is where, you know, you guys are probably going, why does this program have to be so hard to use? It's so confusing. It's things like this that are why. Because you can get absolute, complete, and total perfection, mathematical perfection. You know, when you look, I mean, I have a background in drawing, and you know, so really I should have been able to do a kind of better job on those little purple lines than I did. But even no matter how careful I am, I'm not going to be able to draw anything mathematically correct ever. And that's where, you know, Illustrator comes along and it's replacing, like back in the olden days when people did this stuff with ink and they had to use tools like, you know, protractors and compasses and straight edges. And they had to do a lot of math to get that line perfect. So now Illustrator does all the math for you. And if you're like most of my art friends, not all, but most, they're like, yay, do the math for me because I don't like math. I have a few artist friends who like math. I have a few artist friends who are good at it, but I would say the great majority of my friends, and myself included, really have a hard time with math. So kind of interesting, but you know, it's too bad because math and art and math and music kind of go together. Okay, but anyway, I digress. Here's the next one. Click and let go. Okay, come over here. Click. What happened? Huh? Let me try that again. Click and let. Oh, I don't want to let go. Yes, I do. Click and let go. There we go. Click and drag the opposite direction that I want it. Okay, stay on my pen tool. See, now my spider has got a curved line he's hanging from. And click, don't let go, and drag the opposite. You know, for this, you drag the opposite direction of what you want. Okay, and then click your V or your A when you're done. And see these little guys here. Let me go into my A, these little guys here are super fun because you can modify a curve until it is exactly what you want. And that's, you know, another thing that I really like about this program. It gives you that type of precision that you need, you know, on anything that's going to be commercially printed, you know, any kind of graphics, any kind of, you know, printed material and logos, whatever, anything that's going to be reproduced thousands and thousands of times, razor sharp edges, absolute mathematical perfection, absolute perfect geometry, and Illustrator has all these wonderful shortcuts, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, the last one, this one's a little bit trickier. Click, click, drag. Okay, so far so good, but see what happens when I click here is it automatically wants to make my curve go in the other way. It's like, come on, I want you to flip over there. What you have to do before you can change directions is move your cursor. Don't push any buttons. Just move your cursor, okay? And wait until you're touching exactly that point, and then you can see that little angle thingy next to my pen tool. What that's going to do is it's going to take that curve and turn it into a sharp angle, you know. So a curve, there are no absolute perfect bends, you know, but with an angle, a line stops and then abruptly starts to take off in the other direction. So when you get that, click on that point, come over to your next point and drag down. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. Before I draw this, I click, whoops, I click, come to my next point, and drag. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and end this video and do another one for the other part of this exercise, because I think it's getting a little bit long. Before I do that, I want to make sure that there's nothing that they tell you that I just wanted to point out. I definitely want you guys to read these little blue boxes here. The letter X on the keypad. Oh yeah, this is just kind of a cool little thing. If you want to, you know, I showed you that you could switch your stroke and your fill back and forth with that little double-headed arrow, and that's what I always do. I only memorize the keypad shortcuts that I absolutely need, you know, but you know, I guess it does save me a trip all the way over here if I memorize that this is X and I want to change them. I was reading some statistics somewhere like they figured out if you're a graphic designer over the number of years that, or let's say over the course of a year, if you use the keyboard shortcuts instead of going back to the tool and choosing it from the palette, it saves you hours and hours and hours per year, you know, hours and hours of productivity time. I never really thought about it that way, but if you want to be able to work quickly, it's a good idea to memorize those shortcuts. Okay. Oh yeah, there's one more thing we've got to do here. Hey, where'd it go? Let me go back here. Okay. Yeah, let's come back up to our, let's go ahead and do what they did up here, okay? Let's get our black arrow, and let's go ahead and do this. Let's tell it we don't want to stroke. We want to fill it with blue. Whoops, we don't want to stroke. No stroke. We want to fill it with the blue. There we go. Okay, and you'll see that that changed down there as well. And so here's what they were talking about with the X. Whoops, I think I have to touch it with my mouse, or yeah. No, it's still not working. Okay, never mind. Let's just leave it like it is. long day. Okay, fill that back in with blue and no stroke. Sorry, guys. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to draw like kind of a parallelogram next to it. And I found the instructions here a little bit, huh? What do they mean? So just make a square of some kind and move it until it's kind of lined up with the edge of the triangle. Okay. And it doesn't have to be perfect or anything. Then take your white arrow, and I think it had a neat trick about getting them to both move at the same time. Let me check that real quick. No, we'll worry about that later. I'm just going to move them independently. Okay, see, I've got to click off of it sometimes and then click back on it until it knows I want the white. Okay, so I'm going to take the two anchor points that are farthest away from the triangle, and I'm going to just kind of push them like that. So what I'm doing is kind of creating a little perspective thing here. Okay, and then I guess if I want to be really, really tidy about it, I can do that. And then what I'm going to do is take my opacity down a little bit and then click off of it. And now I have kind of created an illusion of a cube or, you know, a turning corner. So on this one, just finish it. And then when you're done with it, just make it invisible and lock it. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to you with the next part of this one, the part where we do the clipping mask. Okay.